Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast, the podcast where the dogs are the stars of the show. Welcome to episode 68 of the Relaxed Dog Podcast, sponsored by therelaxeddog.com. Thank you very much for finding this show. I am your host, Robert Ober, and I hope that you and your dog are well. Welcome back if you've listened before, and a special welcome if this is your first time. My guest this week is from the US, and that is Tori Mistick. But first, in some doggy news, we stay in the US, in Florida, in a place called Boca Raton. And a 74-year-old lady was taking her golden retriever mix, Nalu, on a walk on one evening, and she let the dog off to go into a bit of a lake. He was about chest deep, and she noticed a large shadow, which unfortunately moved quickly towards the dog. Turned out it was an alligator, and the alligator grabbed the dog. So what did that lady do? She dived onto the alligator. The alligator then let go of the dog and bit the lady on the hand, but then let go of the lady. So they managed to both get out of the jaws of the alligator. They then went to hospital. They both recovered, just with some puncture wounds, thankfully. So please be aware where you are going to go off lead. We go to the UK, and if you are a Manchester City supporter, you'll know, or you may not know, Phil Woden has just recently got a French bulldog, and he's named it Carabao after the Carabao Cup, in which his team is playing for. And in South Africa, some people walking around Hartbeespoort Dam looked out and saw a dog swimming around and having a bit of a hard time. They contacted the local rescue, and the local rescue went out there. In the meantime, a person on a jet ski had found a shepherd mix having a hard time, and they all assisted in the rescue. So congratulations to everyone there. And now, this week's interview. Welcome to the Relaxed Dog Podcast. I am here with Tori Mistick. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Robert?
I am doing fantastically well. So, where in the world are you?
I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where fall is just starting to hit. So it's really nice this time of year.
Oh, nice. And who are we going to talk about today?
Well, today, I got your prompt, and one of the questions included the strange things they've eaten. So I knew we had to talk about Burt. I have two chocolate labs, and labs are known for eating anything, but Burt in particular has gotten into some things. So we'll talk about him today.
Oh, looking forward to hearing about that, and looking forward to hearing about Burt's partner in crime as well. So, as per usual, I am going to ask you to take us back in time to before you and Burt got together, and just tell us about the hows and whys that happened.
So I have had chocolate labs for almost 20 years. And I like having two dogs at one time. And my previous dog, Lola, had passed away, I think 5 years ago, as of now. And so I just had my other dog, Lucy, for it was just the two of us for a couple of years. And Lucy and Lola together were a fun pair because Lola was 9 years old when I got Lucy as a little 8-week-old puppy. So she kind of gave Lola a new lease on life, and Lola showed Lucy, like, what can you do and what can you not do? As old dogs are really great at that. And so when we lost Lola, it was, of course, devastating, as it always is, but it was kind of nice for me and Lucy to just have some time, the two of us. So we had a couple of years, just the two of us, and we did a lot of traveling and road trips and things like that. And during that time, I kind of knew I would get a second dog, and my friends at the park would always say, when are you getting another one? And since I have a pretty large following online and a lot of chocolate lab lovers, I would look on Pet Finder and I would search for chocolate labs that were available for adoption, sometimes in my area, but sometimes all over the country. And I would share them on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. And one day, I'd been doing this for about a year and hadn't fallen for anyone. And then one day yeah, I know. One day, it was a very dangerous hobby. One day I was looking and I saw this profile pop up, and I don't know why it called to me, because it was the worst profile. It was like one blurry picture, like almost no description. It just said senior male chocolate lab, and it said special needs. And that is not the dog that people would be like, oh my God, I have to have that dog. And so because of that, he'd been in the shelter for over a year because he didn't have, on paper, he didn't look real good. And, but I don't know, something about it. I felt like called that I was the person, like nobody was taking this dog. I had to, because nobody else was. And with my blog and everything else that I do, I have a lot of resources and can call experts and ask their opinion on things. And so I called and got more information. And so I learned that his special needs is that he has epilepsy. And so he was on medication for that. And he has to take medication every day, twice a day, to manage that. And he was about 5 or 6 or 7. I think he was 6 or 7. And at the time, Lucy was 6.5. So I thought that was kind of perfect to have two dogs that were the same age, since I'd already gone from a big age difference. And I went out and met him. He was bouncing off the walls, and he's like 90 pounds and was jumping all over the place. He was just so excited, but I could just tell he was just so sweet. And having chocolate labs, I knew that even though he was bouncing off the walls, I just knew he needed more exercise, and he needed, things and tools and resources to manage his energy. And I knew I could do that. And so we hit it off. I got approved. And then the next step was bringing Lucy out to meet him. And I brought her out, and the shelter staff chose that time when I'd already gotten there to tell me that he'd failed a couple of meet and greets before. I didn't know about.
Yeah, and so,
yeah. And so I got there, and Lucy is wonderful because she is kind of, she's a little bit snobby, I guess, when she meets other dogs. She's not always eager to play. Mm-hmm. She's kind of picky. And so she just ignored him, and it worked out perfectly because he was like all up in her business. And she was like, I don't really care what you're doing. She just kind of stood there. And so it worked out perfectly. And so that's how we met Burt.
Oh, nice. How was the first couple of weeks when Burt moved in?
Well, so there was a lot of things in the first couple of days that I hadn't really thought about. So even the minute that we left the shelter, I was like, oh, I don't know if he's good in the car. So there's all these little things, that come up, and he turned out to be wonderful in the car. He was so quiet. He didn't make a peep, and he just lied down. And it was about an hour drive back home. So he was fantastic.
So where do they travel in the car?
So Burt, both of the dogs now, they ride in the way back. I have an SUV. And so they ride in the cargo area. But for our first journey together, I put Lucy in the back seat and I put Burt in the way back to keep them separate, since they had only just met. But then we got home and there was a lot of little things that I noticed about Burt. And I think he's just unique because most people don't get dogs who had been homeless for over a year. So he'd been in the shelter for over a year. Before that, nobody knows where he came from because he was found on the side of the road. And so I don't know if he ever lived in a home because he was found in a rural area. So he might have been like a farm dog and lived outside. I don't know if he ever lived in someone's home. And so when I got him here, like he really was nervous about doing the steps. I don't know if he'd done steps in over a year. And then, we think it's nothing. All of our dogs follow us into the bathroom. He was like, what is going on in here? He was just freaked out by the bathroom. And it was just like all these little things. He also, when I first got him, he did not like to sleep on a dog bed. He would sleep on the floor, or he would just stand. He stood and just like stood for hours and hours and hours. And so it was just a process to kind of get him comfortable with being a spoiled dog. And now he's very comfortable being spoiled.
Oh, nice. And it's that little bit of an extra challenge when there's that unknown, because you just don't know what's affected them mentally so much, and what's in their heads and what they're used to and what they've been exposed to. Yeah,
it's just, and you're exactly right. Like it's what they're used to, I think, is like the biggest thing. And he just wasn't used to lying on a comfy bed or sitting and being good. So it was a work in progress.
That's nice. I remember hearing another story of, a dog taking first steps on grass, and you just think you take something like that for granted, but for some dogs and some animals, it's just a whole new experience and a big mental challenge to, hey, what's this thing I'm going to step on,
Yeah, I know. We do take a lot of it for granted, but it's like all these little things. We spend a lot of time outdoors and we go hiking in the woods a lot. And my dog, Lucy, she loves water. She would live in the water if she could. And Burt, on the other hand, he's the only Labrador who was terrified of water. So when we first went on a hike all together at our regular spot that we go to, there's a little stream that goes through it. And it was lava. He would not touch it. And he had to it took him a long time to figure it out. And so he finally backed up and took a running leap and jumped like 10 feet over top of this thing just so that he didn't have to touch the water. And now he's gotten a lot better with it. He will actually like wade into it and drink it and everything. But he still doesn't really like to swim.
So how was Lucy in that first period when you got home? And
yeah, so Lucy, this is how I would describe it. She was like a spoiled little girl who she invites her friends over for a sleepover and says, yeah, come over. It's going to be so great. You can play with all of my things, except not that and not that. And no, you can't touch that. That's mine. You can't touch that. Don't get your hands off that. So we had like all these toys and all these things. And at first she was like, yeah, party. And then the minute Burt started playing with things, she'd be like, no, put that back in the box. That's mine. And it was so funny. She was really nervous that he was going to steal all of her toys.
Nice. And did Burt play nice with her toys?
Well, he had to kind of learn a little bit. So I kind of taught them how to like do tug of war, because Lucy really likes tug of war with other dogs, especially. And so Burt, he had no patience. He would tug it a few times, and then he would wrestle her, grab her neck and wrestle her to the ground. And I was like, that's not how the game is played. So, we had to kind of teach him how to play tug of war.
So in your house, where does sort of the dogs sort of live, and have you got a yard and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I live in the city of Pittsburgh, not downtown, but right outside of downtown, but it's still like an urban area. So I have a small yard, but it's plenty of space for the dogs to kind of go out and play a little bit and do their business. And one of my favorite things is I have a doggy door on my back door. So they love to go in and out of that. And Lucy, I know we're talking about Burt, but I can't help thinking of her, but she loves giant stuffed animals that are like as big as she is. And she tries to push them through her doggy door with her. And it's like it's the cutest and funniest thing. It's just, I love watching them go through the doggy door. But other than that, yeah, I live in like a kind of smallish house here in the city, and the dogs definitely have the run of the house. So there's really nowhere they're not allowed to be. And they hang out I work from home. So I have a couch in my office. And so they're usually hanging out on the couch in there most days.
How is Burt with the doggy door?
So Burt, he's a little bit taller than Lucy, and Lucy is a little bit taller than my old dog Lola was. So I've progressively gotten slightly larger dogs, but I had the doggy door installed a long time ago. So he has to kind of stoop a little bit to get through it. But he's great. He figured that out pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. And sleeping arrangements.
Well, so for years, I was a no dogs in the bed person, which I think comes as a surprise to many people because I'm just like so proud to be a dog mom. But I like forbid the dogs from being in the bed for years because two big chocolate labs, they take up a lot of space. They're really warm. They get hair and dirt everywhere. So I had no dogs in the bed. And then the pandemic happened and we gave up on a lot of our rules and kind of had like anything goes for a while. And now that they are in the bed, I kind of don't want to kick them out. I like it now. So
no going back.
I know. We have dog beds everywhere. But they're usually in the bed. Burt stays in the bed all night long. But Lucy, she kind of gets up and down 15 times.
Plus she's just getting into the cooler period. So
yeah, she goes, I have, since my house is like 100 years old. And so there used to be a fireplace in my bedroom. And so the fireplace is gone, but the like brick at the bottom is still there. Mm-hmm. So it's like the coolest place to lie. So that's where Lucy usually hangs out.
Wow. Yeah, actually it's a nice sort of like impromptu sort of like crate, but not a crate area.
Yeah, it's like a place kind of because it is like a little distinctive area, like different texture, different material. And yeah, she likes being on there.
Mm-hmm. So what are your local walks like?
So we walk around my neighborhood most of the time. But we'll go, if my house is like the center of the spokes of the wheel, we go out in every different direction, just depending on the day and depending on where it's garbage day as well. I'm always
depending on where it's garbage day.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like over in Australia, but like here in my neighborhood, garbage is picked up on Tuesday morning, but the next neighborhood over from me, it's on Wednesday morning. Mm-hmm. And so on Tuesdays, I go over there, but on Wednesdays, I stay over here because I try to avoid it.
Okay.
So that's part of our routine. On Tuesday mornings, we always go somewhere else. But we walk around here, and there's a bunch of little parks that are just like pretty, manicured little city parks around here. And so we go to those most days, and then we're really lucky to have a beautiful wooded area. It's about a 15-minute drive from our house, and the dogs are permitted off leash, and there's streams and trails and wonderful dogs and really nice people. And so we go there like once or twice a week.
Very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Been any interesting incidents at that park?
Oh my gosh. Well, if you want to start talking about the things that Burt has eaten, we could start with what he's eaten at that park. So there are a lot of trails that go around, and in our area in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of deer. So this is a little foreshadowing of what happened one day. We were walking around, and Burt, he just has the most amazing sense of smell of any dog I've ever met. And so I think from the moment that we got out of the car, probably before we even got out of the car, probably when we were driving on the road to get there, he could smell that there was a dead deer somewhere. And he probably knew exactly where it was from the minute we got there. And so we're walking, doing our loop. It's like maybe 2 miles or something like that we walk. And so we're walking around in the woods, and we're going, and the dogs are off leash, and they're allowed to be off leash there. And all of a sudden, Burt gets a whiff of something, and he goes charging down into this ravine. And it was in the fall. I can't remember if it was fall 2020 or 2019, but there were piles and piles of leaves, like 3 feet deep of leaves everywhere, and this really steep ravine. And so he goes running down, and I was really nervous because that took you down to the road. And so usually that's not a problem because we're way up high on the ridge on the trail, but Burt went down, and I was nervous he was going to cross the road. So I said, Lucy, come on, we got to go down there. So Lucy's like, oh, great. This is going to be such a fun adventure. She's like bouncing around, and I'm like nervous. I'm like trying to run down this hill, and the leaves are so steep. So I was like sliding on my butt through the leaves, and it was disgusting because you could like smell the deer pee in the leaves. And, like I just knew it was just we were going to be very dirty by the end of this activity. And so we get down to the bottom of this ravine where I could see Burt, and he was down in this like crevice. And I'm sorry for anyone. I hope no one's eating lunch. He had found this deer carcass that was like, I don't know, pretty decomposed. And I found him, and I was like so scared I was going to fall into this mess. So I'm trying to like straddle over the sides and not slip in the leaves and all of this. And I had to reach in. Burt had his whole head inside of like a rib cage of this deer. It was so disgusting. And I had to reach in my hand, and I was like screaming the whole time. I had to reach in my hand and grab his collar and get him out. And I was so mad at him. And then since we were all the way down there, luckily I leashed the dogs up, and we had to walk back to the car, like on the side of the road. So that's one of the more memorable and like outlandish stories that's happened there. And so because of that, sometimes Burt has to be leashed up at that park when I can just tell that he's like getting an idea.
So how are they when there's live deer around?
They're usually good. And I think that's kind of on me a little bit. Like I try to pay a lot of attention when we're out there. And if I see anything, which we don't usually during the day, but if I see any kind of animal during the day, like a big one, like a deer, I'll call the dogs over to me before they see it, hopefully. But Burt and Lucy, they have never chased a deer, like far or anything like that. My old dog, Lola, one time she chased one pretty far and I had to go find her. But Burt and Lucy have been pretty good about that.
Oh, nice. And smaller animals?
Well, they do. We have a battle with the squirrels all the time. I have a lot of squirrels. And in my backyard, I have a big black walnut tree. Mm-hmm. And so the squirrels, we have tons of squirrels because they're always up there eating the walnuts and running around. And so the squirrels, I think they do it on purpose. They torment the dogs because they run on the telephone wires too. And Burt will go and just bark at the telephone wire for 5 minutes. So, yeah.
Nice. So apart from Tug, which you mentioned Lucy likes, what's Burt's sort of favourite games to play?
Well, so Burt, he's such a good boy. One of the games that we started playing during the pandemic, probably when it was snowing or raining or something one day last winter, I started playing hide and seek with the dogs in the house. And so one of the things that's been important, one of the training things that's been important for Burt is place. So he just gets nervous when certain delivery trucks come by, and he's got a little bit of separation anxiety. And so I found that having him lay in his place on his dog bed in the front room, he just is like his safe spot, like his crate or something, but he just has a bed. So going to his place has been really important. So anytime we can kind of reinforce place, I work on that. So I came up with this game, hide and seek, and I have the dogs stay in their place in the front room, and I'll go hide somewhere in the house and kind of whistle or call them to release them and have them come find me. And it is so funny because they usually have a really hard time finding me. And I can see them running around. I'll hide behind a door, or the one place where they can never find me is if I'm in the bathtub, which they'll walk right by the door and I can see them, but for some reason they don't see me there. And if I'm behind a door in a dark room, they'll run upstairs, downstairs. They'll run through every room and they'll go right by me. And it just, usually they find me because I start laughing. and Burt, he's really, really good at scent work and finding things. Mm-hmm. And he also loves being around me. So having the reward be me, it just sounds very egotistical, but having the reward of the game be finding me, that's his favorite game. He loves that. And his face just lights up and he loves it. He could play 20 rounds of that. Yeah, no, I love it. That's what I think what more people should focus on, that, and then for that to have their dogs to be that reward, what you're doing is exactly it. Great. Yeah. And Burt we just kind of made it up one night. And I mean, I know hide and seek's not a new game, but we just started doing it one night and it became a really fun thing that you can do for 5 minutes or you can do for 20 minutes. And you can make it as easy or hard as you want. And it's really fun. Do you play that in the park? I don't think that they would find me immediately because they would see where I was going. But yeah, I could try it in the park, but I think they would find me immediately, which isn't bad. I mean, it would be an easy reward. So you mentioned scent work, and I was going to ask, do you do specific stuff with Burt for scent work? We just started. I actually discovered scent work and scent games with Lucy. We were training for something else, and the company we were working with sent us a scent kit and instructions on how to do it. And that was the first time I ever discovered it. And then being in the woods with Burt and him finding deer and bones and all kinds of stuff all the time. And I could see him in the woods working a perimeter like police dogs do, like drug sniffing dogs do. I've seen videos of them, and I saw Burt just doing that on his own. And I thought, oh, we should really do some scent work with Burt. So I discovered this sport, and I don't know if you have it over there, but it's called barn hunt.
Yes, we don't have it, but I'm aware of it.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
It is so fun. So we just recently got into it, and Burt, it's kind of new, and it's a little bit, it's just not that available, I think, at least around here. So we weren't able to go to any classes. And I was reading these forums online. They said, just sign up for a trial and just go. And that's the best way to learn. Just jump right into it. Yeah, so that's what we did. I was
going to say, for the people listening that don't know what barn hunt is, do you want to give a little quick summary?
Yes. Yeah. So barn hunt, it can be just like for fun as a hobby, or there's also trials and competitions, of course, that you can do. And so basically it is designed to be straw bales or hay bales set up in some kind of a course, and then hidden in the course inside of the area, the competition area or hunting area. In the hay bales, they hide canisters that have plenty of air holes on them. And inside the canister are live rats. And so when you're doing a competition, there might be 3 canisters hidden, one with a live rat, one that's totally empty, and then one that has rat litter in it. And so it is your dog's job. You let them loose in the ring, and it is their job to find the rat tube and indicate to you that they found it. So it's really about teamwork and them using their nose to find it, because it is hidden under the hay. Like, I can't even see it. The dogs can't see it. So they really have to sniff it out and find this rat. And as a city person, this is not something on my radar. And that's probably why it's hard to find classes around here. But I found out about this, and I just knew, I was like, Burt is going to be really good at this. So, and I also wanted to find an activity that I could do just with him, because my other dog, Lucy, she's a therapy dog. So we have our own kind of organized outings together. So I wanted to have an activity for just him. And so we started doing this barn hunt, and we went to our first competition in the spring with having no classes. And all I was able to do was read online and watch some videos. And I saw people on Instagram doing it. And I sent them DMs asking for advice. But we pretty much just showed up that day and just did it. And so on Burt's first run, you get like a minute or 2 minutes to find the rat, depending on what level you're at. On his first run, he found the rat in 19 seconds.
Wow, nice work.
So he did really good. So we're going to a class tomorrow, and he's got another trial coming up in about 3 weeks.
That's excellent. I love how you...
And he was very proud. Like he was just, it was perfect for him.
Also, I love how you're giving both of your dogs, like personal time and individual time with different things that they enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I hear from a lot of people that they're, I might say, oh, I took just Lucy to this place, or I took just Burt to this place. And sometimes I'll get messages on Instagram saying, oh, I can never choose. Like, I just don't go anywhere with the dogs because I could never leave one behind. And I said, well, you're all kind of missing out then. It's, if you take just one with you, you can go more places. Because like, even for me to go, people love to go to breweries with their dogs, but to take both of them is a little bit too much for me to manage. So if I take just one, then we all have fun. It's better for everyone.
Mm-hmm. To go back with grooming and hygiene with Burt, and with his initial sort of like hesitancy with water, how was bath time?
So he, despite the fact that he hates, and he just walked into the room, he knows we're talking about him. Despite the fact that he hates swimming, he really is patient and tolerates his bath time. And my family, sometimes I'll talk to my family and be like, Burt is just, he'll let me do this. He'll let me do that. And they say, well, of course, he'll do anything. He loves you so much. He'll do anything you ask. And he's just very dedicated, and that's very true. So when I give him a bath, he really just stands still. He does not enjoy it, but he just stands still. He doesn't shake off. He waits for the whole process to be done. But then what I think is fun, I got a dog dryer that's has the canister on the ground and then the long tube to dry them with. He's Burt rubbing up against the door behind me.
That's fine. Here. He's allowed to. It's his podcast.
It's true. I just don't want him to create a lot of editing work for you. So I got a dog dryer, and what's so funny is that my dog Lucy, who's the purebred dog, therapy dog, all this stuff, she hates the dryer, and I need to leash her up and attach the leash to something in order to dry her with it and bribe her with peanut butter. But with Burt, I don't even put a collar on. He just stands there and he lets me use the dryer on him. And he loves it. He loves the feeling of the dryer. And even when I am doing yard work and I have the leaf blower out, he loves being hit with the leaf blower. He just loves it.
Nice.
Most dogs hate the leaf blower, and they hate the vacuum. Most dogs hate all those things. Yeah. But Burt likes it.
Yeah. Excellent. So I know we mentioned earlier on about the epilepsy. Can you tell us, has there been any episodes that he's had and your reactions to that?
Yeah, sure. So I love talking about this because I think the fact that Burt's profile on the rescue was listed as special needs and that he has epilepsy and he's on medication, nobody adopted him because of that for over a year. And I just want everyone to know that I got him. He takes medication every day. It's not a big deal. You have to feed your dog every day anyhow. So adding medication, it's not hard to manage. And he went, once we got his medication at the correct levels and everything. And I think that his change in lifestyle coming to live here, where he gets plenty of exercise, really nutritious food, lots of love, lots of playtime, lots of rest, all of those things that might have been lacking in some way or another in the shelter. So once his lifestyle changed and we got his medication correct, he didn't have a seizure for 2 years. And so when he was in the shelter, he was having them once a week or pretty frequently. And so we got the medication right. And I give them a lot of credit because they went back and forth with their vet 2 or 3 times to get the medication right for him, which was really incredible. I think a lot of shelters wouldn't have the resources to do that. So they really got the medication right. And I kept up with it and kept it consistent. And he went 2 years without having a seizure. And then one night this past spring, I think in February or March, he had a seizure, and it wasn't a big deal. My old dog Lola, she actually had a couple of seizures. I wouldn't say that she was epileptic, but she just had a couple of seizures. So I had seen it before, so I knew a little bit of what to expect. And I think that the seizure that Burt had this year was less severe than the ones I saw Lola have. But of course, now I'm older. Maybe I'm less fazed by things. So I don't know in context really how it stood up to each other. But, we were sitting on the couch together and I was about to go out to go pick up some dinner. And I said, Burt, I'm leaving. You're going to have to stay here. I'll be back in 10 minutes. And it was almost like he was like, no, don't leave. And I don't know what triggered it. It was just nothing weird was happening. It happened to be a full moon. which some vets and even like people nurses have told me that the full moon does sometimes trigger seizures in animals and people. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I was about to get up off the couch, and ordinarily he would get up with and follow me wherever I was going. And he tried to get up and just got this look on his face like, oh, my body's not doing what I wanted to do. And he tried to stand up and he couldn't, and just lied back down on the couch. So I just kept him company and like petted him and waited for it to pass. It lasts about a minute. And I do have some medication here in case of emergency, in case it goes over 3 minutes or something, I can give him something. But honestly, it really was not a big deal, and he hasn't had one since then. So, I don't think that everyone should go out and get a special needs dog. You have to be able to handle it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So.
Oh, excellent. So apart from the epilepsy, has there been any other medical concerns and trips to the vet? Nothing
major. He's a pretty sturdy dog. I think since he was found in a rural area and he is kind of a farm boy, he's just a sturdy dog. And he's bigger than Lucy, but they're about 9.5 years old now, and she's starting to get like a little twinge of arthritis a little bit, and he has no signs of any of that. So he's just a very sturdy guy. And the one problem that we had, which I was just mortified, was a month after I adopted him, or maybe 2 months, because it was pretty cold. Maybe 2 months after I adopted him, we were at a dog park with some friends, and I knew all the people there and all the dogs, but they're all running around. And I'm talking to my friend and I said, oh, it's so cold. I can barely feel my feet. I think I'm going to leave. And Burt runs over to us and she looks down and she said, oh my God, there's blood all over the side of Burt. And I'm like, oh, it's probably some dog's mouth, probably just some blood from I didn't think it was a big deal. But then thank goodness, she was more concerned than I was, because she looked down, he had split his ear, like 1 inch split. And nobody saw anything happen. Nobody heard anything. He didn't make a sound. Like nobody knows how it happened. But it was so cold out that it wasn't gushing blood, because his ears at the tips were probably so cold. It was actually kind of like the perfect conditions for a freak accident like that. So I had to take him to the emergency vet, and he had to get stitches, and they stitched him up like new, and you would have no idea now that it ever happened.
I was just going to make a comment going back to your original, how you found Burt and how a label, and spending that long in a pound rescue, but really in reality, it's like a normal dog.
Yeah.
But that's how negative how we can be by putting a label on that. And he spent a year, and I know fate is meant to be a lot of the time, and he's meant to be with you, but that's, to put a dog through that just because someone thinks this, it's...
Yeah. I meet people all the time and say, he's a rescue and he was in the shelter for a year, and they'll say, who would give up a dog like that? And I said, well, you could have gone and gotten him. He was up for grabs. But you're right. It's just saying special needs. There was even something on his profile that said not good with children. And I asked them why it said that. And they said, well, we just haven't ever seen him around children, so we don't know. And he's so big, he might knock them over, which is true. And he's not the greatest with children. So it wasn't untrue. They're just these little things that people are like, nope, not interested in him. Nope. So yeah.
So I know we had a little reference earlier on with the deer carcass, but complete the sentence. I can't believe my dog ate.
Okay. I think one of the weirdest things that my dog Burt has ever eaten is one day we were on vacation we rented a house out like in the countryside kind of, and we were sitting outside and he was off in the grass doing something. And he came back and he had a whole like 12-inch turtle shell. No turtle in it. But just the turtle shell. And he proceeded to eat the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Or at least he ate most of it and he went and hid the rest of it in the grass or something like that. You know, he finds all kinds of things like that. And it's very hard to get him to drop things. So usually I just kind of let him have it until he just drops it himself. And then I can kind of yank him away. But I buy all kinds of weird things like those in the store. Mm-hmm. So it's no wonder he's thinking he's getting a deluxe treat for free. And he's very resourceful in that way.
There been any other interesting items?
Well, another interesting thing that's not related to dead animals is when I first got him for several months. It took us a while to kind of figure out a routine for leaving the dogs home alone. Lucy, she could be anywhere, do anything. But with Burt, he wasn't used to being in a home. And so it just took me a while. I thought I could keep him in a certain area and he'd jump over something or knock something over. So it just took a while to figure out. And in that process, he would go in the kitchen and he could open the cabinets, open the freezer. I would come home and the freezer would be open and he would have eaten like whatever he found there. But the weirdest thing was he would open the drawer where I keep spices and take out the red pepper flakes and take them over to the couch. And I would find the bottle of red pepper flakes on the couch.
Okay, that is unique.
Very strange. So he didn't eat like a lot of them, but it would be open. He would probably have a couple.
Has he got any other unique habits that you would think it would be unique?
Well, Burt, his nickname is Burt the Flirt because when he goes out, he's just really outgoing and he latches on to people and people fall for him all the time. He's a great flirt. And so he'll go up and he loves to rub up against people. And of course they pet him and then he'll fall on the floor and roll over and like everyone just falls in love with him. And so he's very, very social. He is the best dog. If you're going to go somewhere alone, you'll make a million friends because he just goes up and everyone falls in love with him.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned one of the vacation spots that you go to. Would you say that both of the dogs have a favorite spot to go to?
Well, it's funny you should ask because I recently talked to an animal communicator. And she talked to Lucy, she communicated with Lucy. And I asked her to ask Lucy if she had any favorite places because we have traveled a lot. And Lucy said that she just loves the different smells of nature in the different places that we go. So she didn't really have, she said some dogs, I think this is what Lucy said, is that some dogs like going different places because they get to meet other dogs and do other things like that. She loves to go places where she can just smell something different. So I think it's, the different woods smell different because they have different trees and slightly different soil and different things, depending on if you're driving north or south or towards the beach or something. So, I thought that was really interesting, because what I love about dogs is that I think the best part, like the most magical part about them, is things that are really subtle like that. Like her favorite vacation isn't because we went to like an amusement park or something. She's just like, I love the smell of this one, of all the different trees, not just one tree, but I just love the different smells. So I don't know. I thought that was really cool.
Oh, nice. So you just mentioned the beach. Did Burt go to the beach much? And how was his first time?
Burt has been to the beach a few times. And I was wondering the same thing, how he would like it, because he doesn't love water. But what I discovered was at the beach, because if you go somewhere with waves, at least like, subtle waves, and they're kind of coming in and going out, he got really comfortable. If he was standing in one place, the water would kind of come up and he would stay put and then it would leave. And he really liked that a lot. So he, being at the ocean, I think got him more comfortable with water, because he realized it's something that it's not like a constant, like it'll come and go. So it kind of got him over his fear a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And there's also some interesting things to smell and find at the beach. Did he?
Well, yes. So that was another place where he had to go on leash, because he was up in the dunes looking for trash and going to people's houses probably. So he had to be leashed up for a little bit. He didn't last very long off leash there.
Apart from Lucy, does he have any other close doggy friends?
That's a good question. Burt, I think the pandemic has kind of impacted our dog friendships a little bit, because we used to have regular friends that we would see at the park every day. And then so many people kind of stopped going, or they changed their routine, and we don't see the same people every day anymore. But when I first got him, he had a couple of best friends. One of his best friends was a Bernedoodle, which are really cool dogs. Very, very nice. And then I'm trying to rack my brain to see if Burt does have a best friend. I think he's just a mama's boy.
Nothing wrong with that. If I had to ask you right now, and what was in your head, your happiest moment with Burt?
So this takes you back to like the subtle things that I was talking about. And so it's not like anything big, but in the early days of getting him, anything that I could tell he was going out of his comfort zone or learning something new, I was just so proud of him. So obviously doing the barn hunt was really great. That's recent. But one of my favorite memories, which I don't even know if I'm going to describe this very well, but we went to, when I got him, even though he's an adult, I enrolled us in group training classes to kind of refresh the basics. And so we were going through a training class, and Burt was not very good at just sitting, because I think he didn't have the muscle memory, of sit takes a very particular set of muscles to kind of hold that position. And I think in the shelter, he had just kind of lost that particular set of muscles to do that. So we were kind of working on sit and down. He was very, very bad at doing down. And so we were at class one day, and I can't remember if it was sit or down, but one of those two cues, I asked him to do it. And it was like, he looked up at me and a light bulb went off, and he was like, oh my gosh, I know what this is. I remember this. I know how to do that. And it was just like, I know that's not like a really kind of fun, exciting story.
No, but it's a special moment between the two of you, and that's what counts.
Yeah. And it's like we just made eye contact and I saw him be like, oh my gosh. And I was like, oh my gosh, he knows. And we just had this like communication. And I think I think, like you said, sometimes it's just fate that some dogs end up in your life. And I think we just are really connected on another level. So yeah, that's a little memory that I enjoy.
Beautiful moment. Do you have anything else that's coming into your mind that you'd like to share about Burt?
Well, November is coming up, and that is Adopt a Senior Dog Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And so I would just encourage everyone, I think in the pandemic, so many people got puppies, which is wonderful and exciting. But don't forget about the senior dogs because they have a lot of life left and a lot of love to give. And they're wonderful, wonderful dogs out there. And there's no reason not to get them. So check out the senior dogs.
Absolutely. Now, do you want to let people know a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I've kind of maybe alluded to it a little bit, but I have a dog mom blog that I've had for about 8 or 9 years. It's called Wear, Wag, Repeat. So wearwagrepeat.com. And I blog about all kinds of things that I do with the dogs and recipes that we make. We do a lot of interesting stuffed Kongs and stuffed chews and things like that. And I also have a podcast where I interview women in the pet industry about business and dogs. And so if you have your own pet industry business, you might want to tune in. It's also called the Wear, Wag, Repeat podcast. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, at Tori Mistick is my account on there. And I'm always just posting whatever we're doing. And I like to try pretty much anything you can do with your dog. I like to just try it out and see what it's about so I can tell other people about it.
Oh, that's fantastic. You never know what your dog is going to like until you try.
Yeah, that's very true. And you never know what you're going to like too. I think a lot of people don't get into, dog sports or different things because they're like, I'm not really into that myself. But once you see how much fun your dog has, you will like it.
I like that. I like it. Nice philosophy there. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. It was really fun. I'm usually talking about social media or something. So it was really fun to just talk about dogs and to talk about Burt.
It always is. Thank you very much again. Take care.
Thanks, Robert. Bye-bye.
Now, before you turn everything off, just hit that subscribe button and also think about that share button and who you are going to send this episode to. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to hit those buttons, just like our listeners in Ashburn in the USA and also in Madrid, Spain. Until next week, stay safe and remember, your dog is family.